This was part of the Electronic Frontier Foundation's investigation into data brokers that are targeting increasingly smaller and smaller police agencies by positioning themselves as a better alternative to doing the long established precedent of requesting information from a company, which require, like Google, which requires a court order and a certain amount of time to process. They've been saying that they can get that information in a matter of days, kind of implying also that it maybe doesn't require a court order or process because of the way that the data is gathered. It's like public or opt-in is what they claim. If we take a look at some of the specifics, we can see that Fog Data Science has been attempting to send out this marketing material to smaller police agencies and requires about like a $10,000 or so per month subscription. And what they're claiming to do is be able to take applications, and they're naming a lot of different ones, but they specifically named Waze and a couple other apps like Starbucks, use that sort of data that has been anonymized with a hash, and then just taking that hashed count information and comparing it from other data brokers to stitch everything together into a large pool of data. Now, what's interesting here is the marketplace. They are not the ones actually collecting the data. They're just somebody who is a portal to this data that is organizing it specifically for law enforcement and kind of pitching it as a way around the normal process of being able to get a warrant. Some of the actual brochures that have been put out are actually available. So if you want to check out what this product actually looks like, there are brochures that were delivered to the Chino Police Department that pretty much spell out the benefits, exactly how much it costs, their presentation, that they have 250 million US digital devices monthly, 15 billion signals collected daily globally. And what they're also saying is that you can find where people sleep, you can find where people live. You can take an area that you're interested in, draw a box around it, and then find out who was there. And not only that, but where they go to bed, like where they go to school, where they go to work, like where they go to eat. These are called patterns of life that allow a police officer to very easily determine who someone is by just stitching all these details together and then kind of just connecting the dots. So this is metadata at its most extreme. It might be anonymized to a certain extent, but then it's stitched back together and sold to police agencies with this interface that allows them to very easily start snagging people in this sort of data web. So you can also expect that like anybody who attends a protest, like it's as simple as just drawing a box around the protest and you can start to find out information about everybody who was there. This is something that has been pitched for a lot of different uses, some of them extremely invasive. And what's also the most concerning about this is this company doesn't have a lot of regulation around what it's able to do. The data that it collects is allegedly public data, and they claim over and over that this is an opt-in process, that on some level everybody's opted into this data collection. And that might be true for the specific application that that person is using. But if that application involves background collection of data, or if it just pings every time you open it, then what it could mean is that the app is actually making a bunch of extra money by selling it to a data broker who sells it to this main data broker that primarily serves the government, but also serves some private entities. And then this ends up in the hands of companies like this. Fog Data Science has been implicated also as being like kind of loose about their standards for who gets access to this data. And what I mean by that is it appears as though they allow private entities to make requests and they just do the analytics for it. So while they don't allow like a law firm, for example, direct access to their data, they do allow private entities to make queries, which they do the intelligence behind and then just deliver the results. The fact that this is targeted at law enforcement, uses extremely invasive tracking technology, and then turns around and offers the same product to essentially just like civilians in exchange for money means that anybody can be tracked. I mean, provided that you have a connection with like a lawyer, a private investigator, or somebody who can just make a request to this company to look somebody up and give them the results. So this is a very scary development in the way that these sorts of data brokers trade data between themselves and target specific groups in order to make more money, because these services that are being offered to small police departments often completely violate due process and can also be offered to private entities that have no real reason and no legal right to be looking into where people sleep, worship, where they might get healthcare, or maybe if they've been to an immigration office. These are all things that are very sensitive to someone's pattern of life. And being able to just scoop up all this information as a private company or even as a police officer with no process, that is a very disturbing thing. And that's why the EFF is going after this particular organization because of the way that they're marketing their data and because of their extensive ties to some very large data brokers. This is just kind of an opener for anybody that uses apps that collect a lot of information. You might wonder who would pay so much money to learn your location, all the time. Like, why are all these applications making all this side money on your data? Well, it's because brokers like this are able to get around huge problems that law enforcement have with legalities and like getting like warrants and getting like signed letters from a judge. If these sorts of low cost data brokers are able to appeal to smaller police departments, it makes it much more likely that these sorts of invasive searches are going to be done routinely. And they're not always presented when the person's arrested later on, because these all often have like restrictions in the way the existence of the technology can be revealed. And they'll often cite like proprietary, like, this and that. But in reality, it kind of creates an imbalance for like defendants or people who are charged with crimes that were investigated or kind of like proven using this technology, because it's imperfect. And while there's a lot of invasive potential for this, it still doesn't work very well because most of the police agencies that bought this product either didn't renew it or sought refunds. So it doesn't seem like the user experience of many of these police agencies was worth $10,000 a year. But the threat that companies like this present is still very real. And that's why this investigation was so important and why you should be paying attention to it, because data brokers are getting increasingly sophisticated at this sort of thing.